Hi, I'm Fontaine. We're here in my studio and we're here to talk about the music industry.
Hi Seb, what do you think the main change in your specific music genre is over the last 10 to 15 years?
The main change in my music genre? Well, I think actually even the genres have changed. I mean, when I first started doing house music, dance music, you know, everyone would say it's a fad, it will never last, you know, a couple of years at the max. And here we are 30 years later. I mean, there have been lots of changes. It almost seems almost amoebic in the fact that every time there's a new genre, it kind of splits off. Like you get deep house, then you get kind of deep tech house, then deep, and it just seems to be genres going into more subsets of genres, which is good and bad. I do like the fact that when I first started DJing, literally you could play kind of hip hop and house and a bit of funk all on the same night, and it was just the way music was evolving. And I think maybe now we might be slightly too kind of one-dimensional. But it has created some amazing DJs and some amazing subgenres of music. So, like everything, pros and cons.
You mentioned going to festivals and clubs and all this and that. What is the biggest set or event that you've ever personally taken part in or played at?
The biggest, I think the biggest thing was probably Radio 1 Love Parade. They only did one and it was in a park called Roundhay Park in Leeds, and I don't think the council knew how big it was going to get. And I don't get nervous before I DJ. And I walked on that stage and I think I went on after Sasha, or maybe it was Darren Emerson. There was one either side. And every time a DJ walked onto that stage, and these are some of the biggest DJs in the world, I saw them take a gasp. You got out there like, oh my, that's a lot of people. You know, there were like 80,000 people in, you know, which is, you know, a full Wembley. So it's pretty inspiring. It was great.
Okay, so I asked you earlier what you thought the biggest change has been from, say, the last 10 to 15 years. What do you think we can expect to see in terms of major changes in the next 5 to 10 years within the music and DJ industry?
I mean, when you talk about change over the last 10 years, I mean, literally, I've just redone a record contract that for a track that we released 11 years ago, and we've just re-signed it. And when we looked at our old record contract, it doesn't even include downloads. There was no iTunes store, there was no nothing. I mean, literally everything has changed. Not what has changed, everything has changed. And I think the music industry, I mean, obviously everyone talks about streaming now. I mean, no one has a record collection anymore. Everyone just has a phone with I mean, nowadays, most people don't even have tracks on their phone. They're just streaming them. I really think it's almost impossible to talk about the changes in the future. I mean, I think the best thing you can do is just to have one eye on the future and kind of go with it. I mean, I think at the moment we're involved in a project called Evermix, where DJs plug the phone into the mixer. They can upload their DJ set there and then from the club, and people that were in the club that night that have got the app can even put their photos onto the DJ set, and it creates this whole story. And I think things like that are where the industry will go.
Okay, so as an Everton fan, I travelled to Stamford Bridge about a year and a half back to watch Chelsea v Everton, and I saw a couple of pages in a massive page that you'd actually written yourself about players and what have you. How did Chelsea get in contact with you doing that? Or?
I've done quite a bit for Chelsea. I do a bit for Chelsea TV, and I do an independent Chelsea podcast with some friends. Actually, some really good people go on that podcast. I've also I've done the programme notes, and I've also done my favourite Chelsea 11, which went on the back page. Was the game that we won. I think it was the game we won the league last year. Although that seems a long time ago. Yeah, I mean, I've done some great sporting things. I DJ at Twickenham for England in the car park sometimes. I DJ'd For the rugby sevens, I DJ England every time they score a try. I'm playing music. I do quite a lot of sport Grand Prix. So I do Monaco. I do, I've done some great sporting events. I think the music and sports world crossover is a fantastic thing to get involved with.
What is your favourite record that has been brought out by a DJ whilst you've been alive?
I think I couldn't say it was my favourite record, because I think I'd probably have favourite 20, and to separate those two. But if it was one poignant record, it'd be a record called Voodoo Ray by a guy called Gerald, who I DJ'd with a couple of months ago actually for the first time. And it was the record, because I think when I started DJing I was playing hip hop, and I was always playing in the kind of the back room at loads of raves and parties. And this was the record that made me want to play in the other room. It was the record that made me want to play in the big room with all the girls swinging from the chandeliers and people climbing on the speakers. And that's the record I think possibly changed my life, or it certainly changed my DJ life.
Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to come and do this today. I do really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. I mean, I started DJing when I was at Richmond College, which isn't too far from Esher College, so I have full support for what you guys are doing.